What would you do if the woman who spent a lifetime shielding you from the harshness of the world finally stepped out of her comfort zone to embrace the earth you've labored to cultivate? The morning mist still clings to the valley floor as the sun begins to bleed through the canopy of the surrounding trees. Outside the new house, the silence of the morning is broken by the gentle snip of shears. Mother Ly is not behind a door anymore. She is in the center of the garden, her hands dusted with the rich, dark soil of their labor. This is the first day of a new season. Yesterday, she was a guest in her own home. Today, she is the guardian of the garden. But what happens when the fragile peace they've built is tested by the raw, unpredictable reality of nature? Jack and Tu Tien watch from the porch, their hearts full, yet their nerves are frayed. They know that this garden is more than just rows of vegetables. It is the final piece of their sanctuary. If Mother Ly finds joy here, the transition is complete. If she struggles, the ghost of their past poverty, the days where the earth offered nothing but struggle, might return to haunt her. Mother Ly leans over a patch of kale, her movements stiff at first. She has spent years working in environments that demanded detachment. Now, she is asked to nurture. She reaches for a cluster of leaves, hesitates, and then pulls with a gentle, practiced ease. She holds the vegetable up to the light, inspecting it with a critical eye before placing it into the woven basket at her feet. She isn't just harvesting, she is testing the soil, testing her own willingness to belong to this place. "It's different here," she calls out, her voice carrying over the morning air. It's not a question, it's a realization. Tu Tien steps off the porch, her boots crunching softly on the path. She walks toward her mother-in-law, not to help, but to witness. The tension in the air is palpable. Will Mother Ly find the work meditative, or will it remind her of the labor she tried so hard to spare her children from? The soil is soft, Mother Ly continues, kneeling down to clear a few weeds from around the base of the stalks. Her face is flushed with the morning heat, but for the first time in weeks, the tight, anxious lines around her eyes have vanished. She looks at the basket, now half full, and a genuine, slow-growing smile breaks across her face. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated triumph. She has accepted the rhythm of the farm. Jack watches from the edge of the garden, his hands resting on his hips. He sees the way she touches the vines, the way she surveys the rows they had spent so many nights preparing. He realizes that this is the moment the house finally stopped being a building and started being a home. The fear that had defined their last few months, the fear that they were asking too much of her, that she would never truly be comfortable, dissolves in the face of her quiet industry. Suddenly, a sharp thwack echoes from the back of the garden. A stray branch from an overhead tree has snapped, startling a flock of birds into flight. Mother Ly jumps, her hand instinctively flying to her chest. The memory of old dangers, of the unexpected crises that defined their village life, flashes in her eyes. The tranquility of the moment is shattered by the sudden, sharp reality of the mountain environment. She stands frozen, looking toward the dark tree line at the edge of the property. The wind is picking up, whistling through the branches with a sound that feels like a warning. Is this really a sanctuary, or is it just another place where they are vulnerable to the elements? Jack is at her side in seconds, his hand gently resting on her shoulder. He doesn't say anything, but he stands between her and the woods, a silent barrier. He feels her trembling under his touch. The old habits of fear are still deeply ingrained. She looks at him, searching his face for the strength she needs to continue. "It's just the trees, Mom," he says, his voice steady. "The property is secure. Nothing is coming in here that we haven't invited." Mother Ly takes a deep breath, forcing her shoulders to drop. She looks at the basket, then back at the garden. The fear is still there, lingering in the shadows of the woods, but she makes a conscious choice to turn back to the work. She picks up the shears again. It is a quiet act of defiance, a refusal to let the uncertainty of their past dictate the pace of her future. She returns to the kale, but this time, her movements are faster, more confident. She works through the rows with a methodical intensity, clearing the weeds, harvesting the ripe produce, and tending to the earth as if she has been doing it for a lifetime. The fear hasn't disappeared, it has been integrated. It is part of the landscape now, a background noise that she has learned to tune out in favor of the work at hand. Tu Tien joins them, kneeling on the other side of the row. The three of them work in silence, the rhythm of their hands synchronized against the earth. The sun climbs higher, the heat intensifying, but no one stops. There is an unspoken understanding that this morning is sacred. They are not just harvesting food, they are harvesting the fruits of their collective sacrifice. By midday, the baskets are full. They carry them toward the house, the weight of the vegetables heavy in their arms. As they reach the porch, the door stands open, a welcoming maw of shade and comfort. Mother Ly pauses at the steps, looking back at the garden. The rows are clean, the earth turned, the produce collected. She has successfully staked her claim on this patch of land. They move into the kitchen, the cool air inside a stark, blissful contrast to the heat of the garden. They begin the process of cleaning the harvest, the water running cold and clear over the greens. The sound of the kitchen, the clatter of metal, the rush of water, the hum of the refrigerator fills the space with the comforting soundtrack of domestic life. Mother Ly sits at the table, her hands resting on the wood. She looks tired, but it is a healthy, earned exhaustion. She looks at the pile of vegetables, then at Jack and Tu Tien, who are working side by side to prepare the meal. The kitchen, once a place of planning and desperation, is now a place of production and sustenance. You know, Mother Ly says, her voice breaking the rhythm of their work, I spent my whole life thinking that being a mother meant carrying everything for everyone else. I never realized that being part of a family meant letting others carry something for me. Jack stops what he is doing, his knife hovering over a head of lettuce. He looks at her, stunned by the admission. It is the most honest thing she has ever said to them. He realizes that the garden had done more than just provide food. It had provided the physical space for a conversation that was years in the making. We wanted to build something that made you feel like you didn't have to carry it all anymore. Tu Tien adds, her voice soft. Mother Ly nods, looking around the room. She traces the grain of the table again, her touch lingering. You've done that, I feel. Lighter. The meal they share that afternoon is the best they have ever had. It is simple, fresh, and deeply, profoundly meaningful. They talk about the next day's plans, about the need to add more soil to the northern bed, about the type of flowers they want to plant along the fence. They are no longer talking about survival, they are talking about cultivation. As the afternoon light shifts to the golden, long-shadowed glow of dusk, Mother Ly walks back out to the garden alone. She stands in the center of the rows, her hands clasped behind her back. She looks at the mountain, at the road that leads away from the farm, and then back at the house. She has made her decision. She is not a guest here anymore. She is the anchor. She turns and walks back toward the house, her gait confident, her head held high. Jack watches her from the window, his heart swelling with a mixture of pride and relief. He knows that the road ahead will have its challenges. The mountain is unpredictable. The farm is a demanding master, and life will inevitably throw new hurdles in their path. But as he watches his mother walk toward their shared future, he knows they are finally ready for whatever comes next. They have transformed the soil, but more importantly, they have transformed their own hearts. They have moved from the chaos of the build into the steady, rhythmic life of the farm, and in doing so, they have found something that no amount of money or struggle could ever provide: a place to belong, a purpose to pursue, and a family that is, for the first time in years, completely, unshakably whole. The house stands silent in the twilight, a beacon of their resilience. And as the stars begin to wheel slowly across the sky, Jack joins his mother and Tu Tien on the porch. They sit together in the cooling air, watching the world drift into the dark. They don't need to speak. The harvest is in. The work is done. And for the first time in their lives, the silence isn't a threat, it's a promise. The farm will provide, the garden will grow, and they, together, will continue to build a life that is as enduring, as rooted, and as beautiful as the land they have chosen to call home. The night deepens, the shadows swallow the valley, and the house stays bright, a warm, golden pulse in the heart of the wild, holding them safe, holding them close, until the sun rises to begin the work all over again. They are home, and they are finally, truly at peace. The wind hums a soft melody through the rafters, a lullaby for the tired and the brave, and Jack leans his head back, closing his eyes against the fading light. He knows that tomorrow will be full of new questions, new demands, and new miracles, but he isn't afraid. He is anchored. He is home. He is with the people who matter most, and that, ultimately, is the only foundation that will ever truly hold. The house stands strong, the garden waits, and the story of their life in this small, quiet corner of the world continues to unfold, one day, one harvest, one moment at a time. The world outside the gate may change, the seasons may turn, and the mountain may shift, but here, within the walls they built with their own sweat and the bond they forged with their own love, nothing will ever break them. They have planted the seeds of a new life, and now they will watch it bloom, side by side, in the quiet golden peace of the home they have finally, against every odd, truly created. The night is theirs, the future is theirs, and the peace they feel is the final beautiful harvest of a long, long road. They are safe, they are together, and they are, at long last, exactly where they belong. The cycle closes, the day ends, and the promise of the morning waits just behind the horizon, no longer a weight to be carried, but a life to be embraced, nurtured, and lived with every fiber of their being. They have won, and the silence that surrounds them is the loudest, most triumphant song they have ever heard.